Hello and welcome back to the Enlightened Podcast. I am your host, Luyanda Khumbuza, and I'm super thrilled to bring you another transformative conversation. Here on the Enlightened Podcast, we're all about providing practical advice, actionable strategies, as well as inspiring insights to help you thrive in today's workplace. And today's episode is very, very special because we're diving into the topic of resilience. I know when I said that word, a lot of people were like, oops, resilience, really? But we're going to talk all about how to build it, how to maintain it, as well as use it as a foundation for workplace success. And joining me to unpack this very vital topic is Joni Peddie. Joni is a resilient and high-performance expert with over 33 years of experience in leadership development, keynote speaking, as well as facilitating change. She's worked with countless of leaders and organizations to move from merely surviving to truly thriving by developing a bounce-forward mindset. We're going to learn all about that. With 2 books under her belt and a 3rd one on the way, Joni is here to share her expertise and practical tools for navigating workplace challenges and emerging stronger on the other side. Joni, welcome to the Enlightened Podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Luyanda. Thank you. I appreciate that lovely intro.
Thank you. So you work in resilience and leadership, right? Which is quite, inspiring. Can you share your journey on what led you to become an expert in this field in particular?
So I started my working career 40 years ago. And it was really all in marketing. So I started with Unilever, then Bristol-Myers Squibb, then Kimberly-Clark. And then actually I said to my late husband, I said, look, I really don't care about the brands anymore. So it can be hair colorants or, Omo washing powder. What I do care about is people. So I wanted to start a business that cared about people. So he said, okay, Joni, you have got 6 months to get this business up and running. And if you're not making any money in 6 months, you will have to go back to corporate. So that was the background, Luyanda. And I really am passionate about people, their stories, their ways of being, their cultures, their ability to be the best version of themselves. So I started my career looking at the Enneagram and the fact that all of our brains are hardwired differently, and I still do that. And I'm really fascinated with how we manage ourselves as people, especially in this era of dramatic change and volatility and uncertainty and so much digital distraction. So I look at individuals, but my sweet spot is working with teams and corporates, especially senior leadership teams.
Yeah. Did you find that your experience in corporate is what led you to start this business particularly? Was there a gap on experience that you had where you were like, this I cannot deal with?
You've got a good insight and foresight and intuition, Luyanda. You spot on money. I couldn't have said it better than you. I sat around those boardroom tables. And bear in mind, 35, 40 years ago, it was very pale male. And that was problematic in itself. But I sat there thinking, it's a political dance, and it's really, people are forgetting that their heart's behind the brains, and we're dealing with people and people issues. So they're not just, one corporate said to me, this is a dreadful saying, so I won't tell you who it was. They said, Joni, here's the organogram, and they were doing a restructure, and we can drag and drop boxes on the organogram. I promise you, Luyanda, I nearly fell off my chair. I said, these are people in those boxes. We don't drag and drop them. Like, really?
People.
Dreadful.
So you've coined the term bounce forward, which I find quite fascinating, right? Because I take the term literally. Please tell us more about what this really means and how do we apply this as a strategy in the workplace?
So the reason I coined it was that when I lost my husband 17 years ago, he had a aortic aneurysm, so his heart burst. It was tragic. Thank you. It was terrible. And my children were tiny. They were 7 years old and 9 years old, and they were very tiny. And people used to say, Joni, you're a strong personality. You are going to bounce back. And Luyanda, I'm not an aggressive woman, but actually many people nearly got a bloody nose because I'm like, that is the most dreadful English phrase, bounce back. Who bounces back after losing a loved one? You don't ever bounce back. Family is destroyed. So we had to reformat, my little girls and I. And I had to be honest with them that life will never be the same.
Be the same.
And we are
Absolutely.
going to have to bounce forward, because there's no going back to that picture of the four of us. That picture's broken and destroyed. And, I deal with people, it's not just in loss and trauma, but, we just spoken about drag and drop. So people get retrenched. It's like they're going to have to look at that adversity, that challenge, and how do they go forward? Because sometimes through adversity, we grow. It's called post-traumatic growth. So I really am on a mission worldwide to eradicate the silly English words out of the dictionary, bounce back. They are ridiculous, and replace them with bounce forward, because that's what we all need.
Absolutely. And when we think of resilience, I'm a huge fan of Brene Brown, so I'm very much comfortable with such topics, resilience, being vulnerable, and I connect with you on that. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you've sort of found as you began in this field where you're studying resilience and you're helping people build it?
People don't understand what it means. So I like to take complexity, and there's a lot of complexity, and go to the far side of simplicity. And when you use this as a metaphor, Luyanda, in any senior exec corporate leadership team, they get it. You sitting around a boardroom table, maybe it's square or rectangle, and I say, listen, people, there are 4 legs to this table, which makes it a sturdy table, okay? We can all sit on here, we could dance on here if we wanted to. So what are the 4 legs to resilience? And it's really important that we remember this. And I've co-designed with a couple of other global players, an assessment that can assess resilience on these 4 dimensions. So we have mental resilience. We have, that's one leg. We have emotional resilience. That's the second leg. We have physical resilience, which is being strong, being healthy, etc. And then we have a 4th leg, which people don't take into account, sense of purpose resilience. So we all want to wake up with a sense of purpose. Then you are resilient, you bounce forward, you have desire to do something, making an impact in the world. So people get a little bit confused about this 4th leg, because they think, oh my goodness, maybe I've got to have a sense of purpose to clear all the plastics out of the ocean. And I'm saying, no, there are people who've got those big, hairy, audacious goals, but it's even a sense of purpose to make a difference in your community today. So, if you're living in a community, I've got people who sew eye masks for me, and, they look after their grandchildren. It's their purpose for the day. Their purpose might be to sew 15 eye masks, look after the grandchildren, and have some fun kicking a ball outside. So I'm talking about purpose just on a daily basis, a weekly basis, quarterly or yearly. It doesn't have to be big, hairy, change the world purpose statements.
I absolutely like what you're saying, and I think I've never known of a term of, purpose resilience, and now that I actually know it, it helps you bounce forward, more easier, right? Because you know exactly what you're working towards, you know exactly what the end goal looks like. So even when you do get derailed, because those things, just because you're optimistic, it doesn't mean that you're exempt from going through certain challenges. And you've mentioned that we go through so many challenges, especially in the workplace with COVID, AI, I mean, it's endless, right? How do you think that individuals and teams can start embracing this change as more of an opportunity than rather as a challenge? And maybe let me make it specific to AI and Meta specifically, because, people are now sharing roles with robots, machinery, and it's kind of a challenge in the workplace that you're seeing and hearing of on a daily basis.
100%. And actually, Meta have just retrenched 4,000 people today. So Mark Zuckerberg is, that's a big close. So mastering change and dealing with constant change, and it's different to our grandparents, Luyanda. Our grandparents dealt with change, but not as rapidly as we have to on a daily basis. So the brain's psyche to keep up and to ride the waves of change is tough for us. So part of my book that I'm writing is around stress resilience, because you need to have a threshold of how you manage yourself in order to manage the change, which is always stress. When you think of this organ between our ears, is, when we lived in nature and we were chasing, a zebra to eat, or we were chasing a hedgehog or berries or whatever, the stress there was to go and find something to eat, to self-manage. Now we've got stresses that are onslaught onto us, and we've got to have a certain threshold resilience. So it's the stress resilience that says, hey, there's an unexpected change today. Maybe I've been assigned to a new team, or I've got 2 roles I have to do in this business because someone's resigned, so now I have to do that person's role and my role. So whatever that change is, and it can be big or small, it can be, that your car is written off and now you've got to find a way to work because you no longer have a car. So we've got to have a certain kind of like almost a trampoline below us that, we can just bounce forward because we've eaten well, we've slept well, we're managing exercise and movement, we're managing our sense of purpose, we've still got pull and drive and intrinsic motivation. So I think people are flattened in change because they don't have this threshold, where they don't sink lower. They just manage that little roller coaster, but they can manage well if they're self-managing well.
So if we use the terms that us millennials use now, red flags, right? What do you think are the red flags or are the indicators that a person might be struggling with low resilience?
Jolly good idea, and I really love that term, red flags. Is low resilience is all about, here are some red flags: binge watching Netflix to escape, alcohol to escape, sugary foods to escape, not being able to socialize, so having social anxiety, a problem. And I've had that. So I've had all of these things. So I've been there. Getting angry very quickly, being triggered where you needn't have been triggered, impatience and tolerance. Those are all, some basic red flags.
And for somebody thinking, how do I now, well, I don't know if the term is control, but what is the best way to sort of manage and work on it?
Yeah, very good question. It's like, there's a million different answers to that, but I'm going to give you what I would give anyone coming to me with a set of red flags. I'm drinking too much. I'm having extramarital sex. I'm binge watching Netflix. I'm eating really badly. I would say the first question I ask is, how are you sleeping? So, Luyanda, it's World Sleep Day on the 14th of March this year. You'll be seeing a lot of me in the media. And the reason I start with that is it is your superpower. So, this stress circle behind me really says it all. It says, eat badly because you haven't slept, you skip exercise, and you're stressed. So all of those red flags. And most people, as in 67% of adults in the developed world, are not getting 7 hours of sleep per night. Are you, Luyanda?
I try. I mean, I wouldn't lie. I'm part of the people that glorify, just 4 hours. I'm running on 4 hours of sleep.
Yes, that's the problem.
But it's wrong.
So you've hit the nail on the head. You've hit the nail on the head. And that's been a problem for decades, glorifying our sleep when I'm dead. And I have to say that I'm now in my late 50s, in my late 20s, early 30s, I actually used to listen to tapes. We had audio tapes in those days. But I thought, I want to only sleep 3 or 4 hours, because imagine how much fun I would have during the day, and I'd get a lot more done. So I glorified lack of sleep. And lucky I never got that right. And the more I've researched and studied, I've realized that actually there's a trifecta. Okay. Make sleep your superpower, minimum 7 hours, maximum 9, but get quality sleep. That's a whole discussion on its own. Eat less sugary foods, eat high protein diet. And then the third part of the 3-legged stool is movement is medicine. So if any of those red flags are coming up, are you moving enough during the day? So what does that mean? It means that you need to elevate your heart rate for at least 20 minutes a day. And I say 7 days a week. Gone are the days of going like, oh, I'll go to the gym for, an hour session 3 times a week. No, this whole ecosystem, which is connected, head, heart, and gut, is designed to move. When we lived in nature, So, millions of years ago, we used to walk 12 to 18 kilometers per day to go and forage for food and find protection. So we are designed to move. And now what do? We get in our car, we go to our jobs, we do 10, 12 hours of sitting behind a desk. We come home, we make a bit of food, and we do another 3 or 4 hours sitting on our couch.
The couch. Absolutely. I actually appreciate this dialogue because I think we're learning about the things that we think and we glorify that make us look like hard workers, but in actual fact are the very things that are derailing us from actually living our highest potential. Let's speak about the science of resilience, right? What does research actually tell us about the connection between resilience and performance?
So it's highly correlated in those 3 areas, and there's tons of research around good food and resilience and productivity. I read a stat today, actually, by Dr. Peter Diamandis, is that if you cut out sugar in your diet, you're going to be 23% more productive. So, our grandparents never had sugar in peanut butter and, those kinds of foods and breads. Now we have sugar in all of that stuff, which, staple foods. So we are overeating sugar. A couple of decades ago, we were having, and this was American research, 6 pounds of sugar a year. It's now up to 80 pounds. I mean, I don't even know how many hundreds of fold that is. It's crazy. So we are sugar addicts, and there's lots of research around that. There's lots of research around resilience and movement. So if you sit for longer than 2 to 3 hours, your good cholesterol, and there is such a thing as good cholesterol, goes down by 40%. So sitting is the new smoking. There's lots of research around that. And there is tons of research around sleep and resilience. So, a stat around that for you is that if you're sleeping less than 7 hours a night, you will build some plaque in your brain, a bit like you have plaque between your teeth. You build that plaque between the neurons in your brain, and that can lead to Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, and many forms of cancer. So, all of that research is there now. We've got such sophisticated measuring MRIs, etc., that we can measure all of this stuff.
Tools. You work with a lot of leaders, right? And I think there've been many times where we've gone through different things in the workplace, but I think now more than ever, there's a huge call on leaders to be resilient or step into their role, as being resilient, especially if they're managing team and people. What role does emotional intelligence play within this resilience, and how can now leaders start cultivating that?
Oh, I want to just give you a hug right now. Dude, this is my favorite question so far, and yes. I love resilience. But emotional intelligence is really what we need to build into leadership. And why? Because in years gone by, it was your intellectual quotient, your IQ, that got you good grades at school, that got you into a certification or studying or a degree or whatever you chose to do after school. And we revered those people. And what we're starting to see, wait for this stat, someone with high emotional intelligence versus someone with high intellectual quotient, EQ versus IQ. This person outperforms the IQ person for success in terms of the team and team performance 70% of the time. So as humans, we are emotionally driven. So Luyanda, most of our brain are all emotional centers. It's this front portion of our brain behind the forehead, just simplifying it. That's the prefrontal cortex, rational thinking, decision-making, executive function. So we've really got to understand that people are driven by emotions. And this wheel behind me is showing 8 different emotional intelligence competencies, which are teachable and therefore learnable and actually measurable. And we have got international validation around people's EQ scores. So we can measure teams in South Africa versus Mexico or Japan.
Can you share maybe any specific tools or practices that leaders can start using to strengthen their team resilience?
There are many. I just come back from Zambia this last weekend, and a really great banking team who all look at global markets, very, very clever people. And they've gone through a number of leaders and toxic leaders, like 6 toxic leaders. They've now got a brilliant leader. But their resilience is low. There's low trust, there's skepticism. And in global markets, you've got people who are trading the markets, you've got salespeople going to corporates, you've got support teams. So it's even within one team, you've got 3 mini teams. And you can imagine they've had toxic leaders that they don't trust each other. So there's infighting, and now there's new leadership, and there's a whole lot of skepticism around a new leader. So their resilience is low, mentally, physically, emotionally, and they've got a sense of purpose, but the rest are really low. So what I did with them for a full day on Saturday was I taught them the Enneagram, which is a system. It's the oldest system of personality. So they got to understand their own personal strengths, because you can't do team resilience before you've done individual resilience. So this is always a good starting point. And here's a snippet of the Enneagram. It's a beautiful system of personality. Is that, Luyanda, even if you had a twin sister, so let's pretend that this is an egg in your mom's tummy, and do you have an identical twin sister? Maybe I should ask you that.
No. But my husband is an identical twin.
There you go. Well, then you can answer this. Is that so? Yes. Let's just say he was born seconds before his identical twin brother. The 2 brains obviously formed in the mom's tummy, and his temperament, you can answer this, will be vastly different to his identical twin brother's temperament. Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So exactly the point. So why do I teach team resilience, individual resilience? Because it doesn't matter even if you have an identical twin or not, or I'm born this year and 3 years later, my older brother's born, same belief system, same family, mom, dad, same ergonomics, but different temperaments. So people need to understand how they play to their individual strengths, and then how does 1 and 1 make 15 when you bring different strengths together. And that's really how I start the resilience journey. And then yes, it will go on to my resilience assessment with the 4 legs and various other things. But Aristotle said, knowing thyself is the beginning of wisdom. So that's the starting point of resilience. Know yourself, play to your strengths, know how to put up boundaries, know when you need to lean into team stress changes, lean out, pass the ball, take the ball, whatever. It's that agility that we are looking for strong teams.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm beginning to sense a very big link between resilience and retaining top talent in organizations.
Absolutely. So when organizations revere, as you mentioned earlier, emotional intelligence, resilience, and revere that people are their greatest assets, then they will retain and they will attract top talent. So, I'm seeing the younger generations, my daughters are 25 and 27, and it's interesting how they research who they want to work with, what's that organization doing to surrounding communities, the environment, sustainability. So it's young talent coming into the workplace are really looking at what is the value proposition of the business, how are they people-centric and manage the resilience in their business, but also their impact on the environment. There's many forms of resilience that I think young talent are looking at.
I'm definitely going to have to bring you back because this conversation is so interesting, but I don't want to eat into your time. And just final, before I let you go, Joni, what's that one resilient building habit that has the greatest impact, not only in your personal life, but also professional life that we can all walk away with today?
I have a few non-negotiables on my resilience routine. So as much as, we brush our teeth morning and night, these are non-negotiables. Even if I'm on a 6 a.m. flight, which means I need to leave home at 4:30 in the morning, I still do this. Is I get up every morning and do some movement every single morning. So, even it can be 20 minutes on my lounge floor, with a few little dumbbells or whatever. So that's a non-negotiable. Sleeping 7 hours a night is a non-negotiable. And eating clean food 80% of the time is my third non-negotiable for resilience. So those are, I don't care where I am in the world, I do all of those 3 things.
last and final parting words from you as just a wrap of this conversation. If there's anything that my audience and I can take away from this conversation, what would that be?
It would be just, ask yourself 4 questions every day. As simple as that. Have I used my mind adequately today? My mental resilience. Have I thought about this perspective and that perspective? So have some agility in your mind. Have I tuned into my emotions? What am I feeling today? Name your emotions to tame them. Thirdly, have I used my body today? Have I moved? And fourthly, if this is my last day, like what was my sense of purpose today? And will it be the same tomorrow? So if you just think of the 4 legs of the table that you take away and just 4 questions, they don't have to be my exact questions, but something about your mind, something about your heart, something about your body, and something about why you've got this God-given day to use.
I know for a fact I'll absolutely use those moving forward. Thank you so much for your time. We truly appreciate it. And I hope to chat to you again soon.
I hope to chat to you as well, Luyanda. This has been truly enjoyable. It's gone by in a flash.
Right. Thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in. I hope that you've gotten a lot of nuggets to take away and a whole lot of to think about as well as you embark on your success to thriving, to being resilient and being better in the workplace. Thank you so much for tuning in. Till next time. Bye.